I am back with certain things that I guess everyone should know, even though they are connected to economy. But since we are talking about practical economy, so all those people who have attained the age of earning something and expanding, because that's what life is all about, either financially or uh, or emotionally, spiritually, any which way. We like expansion. We expand. So there are certain things that I would like to talk about. First of all, see, this is what has happened to me. This everything. So it's a food allergy. There are certain irritants that cause all these things. So I'm going through a painful period for last 4 or 5 months. But thankfully, I've started a treatment. So all fingers crossed. How would they appear when all fingers are crossed? Anyways, fingers crossed. Things should improve on this front. On all right, so let's talk about what I think that everyone should know, whether they're connected to economy or not, because even if we know don't study economy as economy or we are not interested in it, we do spend money, we do take loans, we do buy things. So this is the reason why knowing certain things would get important. First of all, if you want to see, if you want to pass a judgment like most of us do as to how our governments are operating, so there's going to be certain things that I would discuss on a macro level, and when we talk about the micro level, I'll talk about personal finance. And believe you me, it's not going to get boring, provided you listen carefully and do not start with a presumption. All right. So there's a golden rule of public spending. What is public spending? When you see the government spend on public, they make expenditures on infrastructure, building infrastructure, or education, working on research and development, and until a few years back, agriculture was largely in hands of government, and those were the times when research and development in the field of agriculture was really praiseworthy. Things changed after liberalization, after a few years of liberalization, the phased in a phased manner, and there that was the time, due to no new development in the research section of the primary sector, we started lagging behind, and subsequently we saw the prices of food increase many folds, and it got out of reach of many people because the primary sector growth rate has really come down. So am I talking about things that would interest everyone? Obviously not, but I can't help myself getting into the skin of things. So when you see, I've already explained what public spending is. So, what is the golden rule? So, when you're assessing government's operations, you see that it should not be, it should not be pumping in money to fill up the holes it has dug in the previous years. To make things simpler, if you have started certain projects and they have not started yielding profits, or it has not uh, achieved the outcomes that the government um had as objective, do not pump in more money into the same project. In fact, work on making it so healthy and robust that it gathers momentum. New investments should be made every time you make fresh investments, because in that case, if you keep on pumping in money in the same projects that are not profitable, in any case you are putting in money into something that has not shown promise. So do not burden future generations with things. Do not burden them with more taxes on account of your own capability to make proper assessment for a project. This is the macro level when we are assessing the government's functioning. What happens in personal finance? Personal finance is also, we can take cues from it, and what I would talk about in personal finance is that do not get into debt trap. What happens? There are certain times when uh, when you're not able to, due to certain pressing circumstances, you're not able to pay back your debt. So what is the way out that people suggest to such people? That take another loan, take a short-term loan, something like a personal loan, and pay the EMIs of a long-term loan. But then this is a debt trap of the other level, because this personal loan would have higher interest rates. For example, if you take a home loan, and the prevalent rates, I am not very sure what are the prevalent rates. Until a year or two back, it was between 9 to 12%. Mm, and the personal loans are between the interest rates that is levied on personal loans, even though you can get it easily, more easily, in an easier way. The personal loans are dispersed to you and you don't even need collateral for it. And but the interest rate is 15 to 18%. Now that can get heavy on you. So this is not an ideal way to get out of it. All right, so what should you be doing? First of all, never go for loans that would put you in debt trap. Debt trap is just not taking a one loan, another loan to pay back the previous one. It also means paying more interest than you should. All right, so let's say that you don't have a house, you don't have a car or any conveyance, and you need to buy a jewelry, or support your child for education, for which you'll go for personal loan. So that make sure that you don't give EMIs that are more than 30% of your net income when it comes to housing. Because let's just imagine that you don't have a house and you're living in a rented apartment. That rent should not cost you more than 30%, or at most 35% of your total net income. The same goes for uh, for housing loan. How will you be benefited if you're paying 50% of your net income in giving away EMIs, which for previous initial few years, not previous, initial few years, would be more interest, less repayment of the principal amount. So it is completely no, just defer taking a loan, continue with a rented apartment until it is a really pressing circumstance for you. But then more often than not, it is usually not. So just don't be enamored by the dream of buying yourself a house when you don't have a when you don't have a stable job or a stable income through your business. Plus, it costs you more than 30 to 35% of your net income. Don't go for it. Second thing is transport. Suppose you're buying a car. Don't let your car EMIs be more than 15%, because in usual, normal circumstances, the amount that you pay to Uber or any other transport system, I just gave an example, or any cab, is 15% of your net income. Don't let it be more than that, because in any case, car fall into depreciating asset. I'll explain what that is. in a while. And then personal loan, it should not be more than 10%. All in all, your loans should not be eating, chewing away more than 50% of your net income. So this is what it is. Now, a little bit about what's good and bad debt. Good debt is something good debt is something that is going to reap benefits for you. For example, you take a home loan. There is continuous increment in the housing prices. So whenever you plan to sell it, you're going to be benefited. Or there's another way of looking at good debt and bad debt. Good debt, as I told you, I gave you an example, that education, because you're investing in yourself, you're building skills. House, because the property prices always go up. There is another aspect to knowing what good debt and bad debt is. Good debt is uh, when you can use that asset for reaping some profits. For example, you put your house on rent, then it's going to be uh, a good debt. In the same way, if you are buying a car and giving it for transport, you're going to use it for transport service, then perhaps it's not such a bad loan. Mm, yeah, so that's that. All right, the second rule that I wanted to talk about when you're assessing the government, the macro level administration, is the expenditure rule. Sometimes, to win people over, a government may overspend in form of public spending. But let this be clear, they should be mindful, ideally in ideal circumstances, that expenditure rate should not be more than the midterm GDP growth rate. What is midterm? Or midterm is 2 to 10 years. Like uh, lesser than midterm is obviously less than 2 years, and long term is more than 10 years. So when you see the expenditure rate going higher than the potential of an economy to grow at a certain rate in the coming years, then just don't go for it. But the problem in assessing things is, how do you know that the government is spending their expenditure rate is higher than the potential GDP growth rate? We really have to dig deep into numbers. And then also, a perfectly transport picture can never emerge because it has to be in the public domain. But you can make certain assessments looking at places. If the infrastructure, if they are putting more money in infrastructure, its multipliers effect is good. In education, it is slightly less but good. R&D, quite good. So you need to know where exactly uh, the money is injected by the government. So when you take this particular rule to the personal finance domain, then also it applies. However, we all know about it already. Do not spend more than your income. Your spending should not be more than your long-term income. So basically, do not spend on too many luxury items. Do not spend on assets that are going to be depreciating in nature. That is, not too many on holidays, because holidays will finish, and uh, of course, once in a while is fine. I wanted to talk a little bit more about debt trap, because that's what my focus was. So there are certain things that we need to understand. When you've taken a loan and you have failed to repay it to the bank, it's not that the bank is going to be eager to confiscate your property, whatever it is. because for them, a loan once taken a loan once taken, if not repaid, is going to be it's going to show poorly on their balance sheet from the receivables that will be shifted to non-performing assets. So that's not going to work for them. However, so what there's going to be, of course, stretching things a little more. So there can be some kind of a system arrangement worked out, like rescheduling of repayment of loan, restructuring in some way, deferment of payment, increasing the uh, tenure but reducing the interest rates. Something can be worked out. And if, of course, if you had already been very regular and consistent before your business folded up, or before you lost your job, or before some misfortune took things over, if you were consistent prior to that period, in paying back your loan, along with the interest and the whatever was the amount per month, then that can be a good thing, because then you can work out with bank if the interest can be waived and the principal amount could be the only thing that remains. Then that's going to be a long arrangement, but things can be worked out. There was this news that I read, that the founder of CCT Cafe Coffee Day, he committed suicide because there was too much debt on him, and he could not handle the pressure. Come on, if you're alive, you can come out of problems, or if you can stay in problems, it's not going to be, because worst come worst, what happened even before you got yourself a business, or you got yourself a house, or you got yourself like a big machine, you were surviving. What changed? You can go back and start from scratch. Never give in under pressure. I was disturbed when I read this news. Anyway, so second point that we need to know is, actually the third point. I'll start with this. There has to be, you got to know the difference between write off and a waiver of loans. Write off is what banks do when they shift their loans from receivables to non-performing assets. Now, and waiver is something that they have to completely let go. In write-offs, they don't do that. In fact, it's good for them, because they don't have to pay tax on the income received. What's the income that they're receiving? The bank is receiving. Bank is getting interest on the principal amount that they extended uh, towards the borrower. So you know it that all interest earned on any amount, on any loan, is also taxable. So the bank is also liable to a tax. They get a break from tax. So they get a tax break if you don't pay your loan on time. And later, but then they are not writing it off, in the sense they are not forgetting about it. They will recover that amount. So sometimes they like write-offs, they like deferment. Now, second thing, I wanted to give example of moratorium period. Sometimes what happens, the government gives you a chance to defer repayment of a loan, but that doesn't mean it's a charged amount. They charge you for this. For example, many commercial banks, it has been told to me by many commercial banks, did not tell the borrowers who were going for deferment of their loans or loan repayment. They didn't tell them that they could apply for 24 months. They just said they just put the ball in the court of the borrowers, and they just went for 12 months moratorium period. In fact, in the circular of the RBI, it was written that the borrowers could go for 24 months moratorium period. So what happens? They sometimes sometimes. Or maybe it's a speculation, but maybe it's not, because many people have spoken about this and we've spoken about it in when we meet, that we see banks don't talk about it because they can just write off your loan as a non-performing asset and then of course earn money on it, and when they recover the amount through their ways, and at this and show it as profits. And while you avail the full moratorium period, that your property can't be touched, at least for that amount, that number of days. So please be aware, be mindful, what kind of moratorium period did you go for, or are you going for? RBI or the central bank, whichever place you live in, go and check out the circular of the central bank. That's going to be important. So that's pretty much it. I think this, if I were to summarize, don't get into debt trap. If you're going for loan, just make sure that loan is not given to you at higher rates than what you otherwise would have spent on rent or car or anything else. Don't repay your loan by taking another loan. That's a debt trap. Face your problem head on when time comes, when you actually when you uh, when you're actually not able to repay. Try and focus on uh, reaching an arrangement with your bank. Second thing is, when we talk about macro level, just make sure, because there were certain articles that I read that the government, whatever it earned from the robust petroleum bills and other incomes, they put it in their budget deficit. Now that's not they didn't put it in fresh investments. Anyways, I will not talk about this issue until further information is there, because sometimes we just paint people bad. I don't want to do that. So that's that. All right, bye.